Hello, everyone. Well, today we're going to take a walk out to the woods, and we're going to find out about a cult that lives out there doing some very, very not too much fun occult stuff. And it's going to be a bloody, bumpy ride. So strap yourselves in, and let's talk about all that right now. All right, so the book we're going to be talking about today is Devil's Creek by TODD KEISLING. And everybody has a certain thing in horror, a certain trope maybe that you like more than others that helps you to suspend your disbelief of the story, and allows you to really get into that subject matter. And for me, this is one of those. I've always had a thing about religion gone bad. As a matter of fact, the more horribly bad it goes, the more I'm into it. Because I grew up in a very religious household. I grew up in a Pentecostal church. On the one hand, they're telling me Jesus loves me. On the other hand, if I do something wrong, I'm going to hell. Very confused as a child, but I believed it because I was made to go, So anything that has to do with, possessions, exorcisms, the cult, the occult, anything like that, I'm a sucker for. And this book combines all of these elements, basically, maybe except for the exorcism. But this book has all of those twisted, religion gone bad elements. And so I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was fantastic. And it's basically about a cult in the woods. At first, it's just a regular church. People go out there to worship. They decide to live out there like a little Jonestown, a little commune. Preaching their hellfire and brimstone away from the main town that had kicked them out. But eventually the pastor discovers that underneath their feet, there's something there. There's something that's alive. It's something that's calling to him. And once he starts digging, he realizes that there is a God below. And very different from the God he started out worshiping. Anything the God up there says is a no-no, this God says go for it. Nothing is off limits. Pleasures of the flesh. Nothing is wrong. And so this preacher now gets possessed by this God. And he starts preaching the gospel from the God below. And a phrase that you'll see in this book over and over from the people devoted to this God is, old lies above, new love below. However, this God below demands suffering from his followers. And it demands blood sacrifice. Because it's a hungry God, it's a thirsty God. Now this pastor, being in the woods and being in a cult, of course, he has had children over many, many years with all the different women in the congregation. But he didn't sire them to raise them or to love them. He raised them to be sacrificed whenever his God demanded it. A blood sacrifice and a flesh sacrifice. And one day while performing this sacrifice, a bunch of ex-parishioners, family members of those who are about to be sacrificed, decide to break up the little party. They can't take it anymore. They're going to rescue their loved ones. And after a bloody battle that leaves the pastor dead with a bullet through his head, 6 of those children are rescued and taken out, including Jack, our main protagonist. We fast forward 20 years later, and Jack is coming back to that town for the first time in a long time. His grandmother has died. His grandmother was one of the rescuers that had rescued him and the other 5 that night. The other 5 half-brothers and sisters have stayed in the town, each of them dealing with this trauma they experienced growing up in this cult in different ways. But when Jack comes back and starts taking care of his grandmother's affairs, he and through his half-brothers and sisters start discovering things, secrets about magic and about curses and about what really happened all those years ago. Things that, memories so bad that sometimes they block them out. And that's where it gets really good because this God is not finished. He is angry that his sacrifices 20 years ago were taken away. And he consumes the body of the dead preacher The dead preacher comes back to life. He's now fully possessed by this evil, unstoppable God, and there is going to be literal hell on earth to pay for the wrongs that it feels was done to it all those years ago. And this book is just a bloody good roller coaster of fun occult horror. You never know who is going to die and who is not going to die. And I really like that about this book. It of course, the tension builds in this book and builds and builds and builds because you see the ultimate showdown as this evil rises again and starts sacrificing different people in town. We see a lot of bloodshed. We see a lot of bad things happening to some of these people. We also see that on the other side, Jack and some of his siblings are trying to figure out a way to stop it. And at one point, I have to tell you, I went from how are they going to stop it to I don't think they can stop it. That was my thought, because this is not one of those where they're going to come across one secret that's going to be like, oh, okay, we just have to chant and this thing will go away. This is a very evil God. This is a God that is hell-bent on revenge, hell-bent on suffering, hell-bent on sacrifice. And he will stop at nothing to get it. The thing I like, or one thing I really like about this book is that it has I don't want to say a Stephen King feel. It does not read like Stephen King. Let Stephen King be Stephen King. Let TODD KEISLING be TODD KEISLING. But it does kind of have that underlying narrative about the town itself. Just like in Stephen King's fictional towns, we all know that these towns have deep, buried secrets, very dark secrets that were never addressed, wrongs that were never righted or acknowledged, that the town just kind of swept under the rug. And this town of Stafford is no different. And the theme is, when there are these deep, dark secrets in a town, that's the reason why evil like this is allowed to thrive and live in those towns, just like Stephen King used to do in his towns, if you know what I mean. So I do want to make that comparison because it does play a big part of the story and the secrets this town has, and how basically, because of those secrets, that's what started this cult in the first place to begin with. I do want to give a trigger warning. Even though it's not prevalent throughout the book and it's not a main factor in the book, there is talk in that book about children being molested, both sexually and emotionally, by this cult when they were younger. And I know I've heard from people before who said if there's any kind of thing that happens to a kid in a book, I don't want to read it no matter how good the book is. It just disturbs me. So I did want to put that out there. Like I said, it's not prevalent throughout the book. It's not a main thing of the book. It's only mentioned a few times, but it is there. I just wanted to give you guys that heads up. But it makes sense with this kind of God, because this kind of God demands sacrifice. This kind of God demands suffering. And everything the other God is against, he is for. Anything goes with this God, as long as it gets it what it wants, which is its sacrifice. The other thing I liked is that after all this tension builds up throughout the book, the last bit of the book, the last maybe third, maybe a little less, but whatever it is just a fantastically bloody, gory, fun-filled, action-packed sequence of events that at the end will just leave you breathless. It's just fantastic. You won't be able to take your eyes off the page. You don't know, you never know who's going to die, who's going to live. And that's one thing this author does well. It seems like he introduces these characters. You want to root for these characters. You begin to root for these characters, and you want them to overcome this evil and not succumb to it. And then all of a sudden, nope, there he is. This guy, he's gone now. He's part of that God's crew down below there, and nothing you can do about it. So this author does not care about sacrificing his characters for the sake of the story, and I really appreciate that. It makes for a fun read because first you don't even know if they can stop this seemingly unstoppable God as it wreaks havoc throughout that town and in the most bloody, brutal ways possible. But also, you never know who's going to survive. Nobody is safe here in this book. And as you're reading, I was tense. I was on the edge of my seat, waiting to find out, oh, please don't let this person die. And what about this person? And oh, it's fantastic. I really love this book. It's a great read. I can't remember the exact page count, but it was a little bit longer than a novel I would normally read. But it didn't feel like it because, as they say, it's a page turner. You're left with all these characters. And as each character is talked about, each of their chapters will end in a little cliffhanger. So you go to the next character, a little cliffhanger, and once you get back to the original character, your mind is right there. Like, you know where you had left off with him, and you need to see how this is going to end. So this is a great book. I highly recommend it. I will leave a link below to Amazon, Devil's Creek. If you want to purchase it from Amazon, I'll leave that link. Also leave a link to my Twitter feed if you want to join me on there. Hey, come say hi to me and Elon Musk, I guess. I don't know. And as always, thank you for taking a little bit of your time, spending it with me. I really appreciate it. And until we meet again, keep reading spooky, my friends.